Hey, it's Tuesday. We're back.
Good morning.
Yeah.
It is Tuesday. It's 9 a.m. It's Minot Talk. I love to be here.
Kyler had a football game last night.
I
and
did.
It wasn't the Vikings game.
You're right. I did watch the Vikings game, but we did have. I was in Dunseith yesterday for the football games.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Your
got
junior
to
high
see.
team.
Yeah, got to
He's
visit.
a junior high coach. Yeah, Dunseith. He'll go there. Anything that can get him to Dunseith, he'll
I had to take the excuse. Clearly,
Yeah.
we lost, but JV won. So hey, we split the games. I'll take it.
We'll go to Coach's Corner at the end of the show. Talk with Coach Kyler about what's going on
Give you
in junior high football
Give
over
you
there
the
in Surrey.
recap.
Yeah, it's always a good time. But we're joined by District 40 Senator Jose Castaneda. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate you coming back on. Look forward to having a great conversation
we're
today.
gonna have a good conversation. You know, the more heated, the better, right? Because that means we're actually talking about things that matter.
That's what we're hoping today.
It's
We're looking for some heated conversation. If anybody has questions for the senator, we're just going to call you the senator the whole time.
all right.
For the senator, go ahead and drop them down in the comments. We have some stuff we want to talk about. But before we go to the hard stuff, let's throw a softball out there. You're in your off season right now.
I am.
What does that actually mean?
I think big picture, it means that the legislature is not sitting around making laws, making rules, which is a very good thing. You know, as conservative as I am, I think less government is better government. You know, people ask, well, what are laws? Well, laws is anything. You know, most laws are going to just inhibit your freedom.
Yep.
Because ultimately, what are the things going to tell you will do this thing, or you will do it this way, or you will pay this much, or this is how you'll do it. Just, basically nanny state. So it means that when the writer of our initial North Dakota Constitution said 80, well, it's changed, but, they essentially had a limited legislature.
Yeah.
We're now to 80 days of biennium.
Right.
Is a very good thing, a citizen legislature. And so it means that we're still doing constituent advocacy. So that's 24/7. That's a big part of what, whenever you're in public office, you're here to help. So anybody that has any questions, people reach out to me all the time. Someone's even from outside my district, happy to help them point in the right direction. We do have, obviously, some bills were passed as, instead of, specific laws, were studies. So those studies have to get done. And so we'll meet in Bismarck once a month and, different committees to interim committees to check out those studies to see how they're moving along. Get an opportunity maybe to go to some conferences to kind of see how other states do things. We get a chance to talk a little bit about that, about how I think we're pretty lucky here in North Dakota.
Yeah, we do things pretty different generally.
We do things pretty different. And so getting to talk to other legislatures, even these conferences I've gone to have been Midwest. So it's Midwest United States, even Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and including all of them. I mean, granted, they run their government is parliamentary system,
sure, up in Canada,
but outside, so they're
fun.
unicameral. But outside of that, one of the biggest things I've gotten is they cannot believe across the board that we only meet once a year, 80 days. I mean, South Dakota even then meets twice a year, not twice a year, once every year, right? We meet once every other year. And when they say, well, how much staff you have? Well, I have none. And so I think that is actually, telling that it is very important to remember that we've kept this small. And
Right.
And I think if anything, what also helps is the size of the constituency.
Yep.
So roughly, 16,500, 17,000 people per district. You're effectively dividing it by 3 people, though. Right?
Yeah.
And so you can really help out the constituency. Something I do see interesting in other states that have some staff is constituency support gets big whenever all of a sudden you have 45, 50, 60,000 constituents all to yourself, because it all comes down to how the districts are divided. Here, a senator and 2 representatives share a district. So we're just very lucky. Additionally, the divides across party in other states is very similar to, I'd say, the federal government, with the fact that if you're in the minority party, good luck even getting your bill
out of committee
or into committee for that matter,
sure.
and then out of committee, and then even then a floor vote,
Yeah.
right? So the fact that we all our bills I think get a vote on the floor is something that I think is good, and it's open about government, and that is something that I hope never goes away. So I've learned very lucky.
That's cool. You think you're gonna get called in for fixing a governor's veto?
I don't know. That was on the news for a little bit. I haven't heard since.
Went away.
So it's a matter of.
You have a problem with that?
Say again?
Do you have a problem with it?
Not getting called in?
Oh, a problem not getting called in or getting called in?
Not getting called in. Not getting for that specific problem.
For that specific problem, if the government wants to call us in, we go in.
Do you think I get that. What I'm saying is, do you think that the Attorney General is in the right for saying that, well, this was his intent, so we're good to go? Like, we don't have to worry about it. Are you fine with that?
Oh, no, I'm not fine with that, because I think that he or his staff, whoever did ultimately, is on him when he crossed out the actual paper, the physical bill.
Yeah,
right? You take the bill that ultimately at the very back, it's got his signature. It's got the signature of the Secretary of State, right? And the stamp. It's essentially a notarization of the bill, right? It's kind of like if I have a contract, the contract that's notarized, whatever, and then I say, oh, well, I didn't mean to cross that out because I wrote something else. No, I do think that it's vetoed, and it's done. So that's my thoughts on it. So no, I do not agree with the Attorney General on that.
Right.
Now, whether or not we get called in to fix it or not, that's up to the governor. I'm good. If that's what you're asking.
Right. Yeah.
But as far as the Attorney General, no, I think it's vetoed.
Yeah.
Mistake or otherwise, it was vetoed, and that money is not there.
Yeah.
Like the intent is understood, but it's more of the principle behind it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the contract. It's the paper. That's how we operate in this country, right? I mean, you're a car lease and anything. How about a judge's? Whenever you get a judgment, right?
Sure.
You get the original judgment. We've all seen at the very top. What they say at the very end. It's like a divorce decree, right? It's signed by the judge. It's notarized, whatever. And if there's words in there, you're like, I did not mean to say that.
That's not
my wife
intent.
was going to collect $10,000. They put an extra zero. It's $1,000. Well, it's $10,000 until it gets fixed.
That wasn't my intent.
Too bad. That's the paper. So I do. Obviously, people over the session have kind of poked a little bit of fun at me, and that's okay about playing lawyer, even though I never went to law school, right? But I do think it's just you need to go to law school, have common sense. At the end of the day, you have a piece of paper that's a piece of paper that is signed, done. That is it.
Yeah.
And words mean things. It is what it says. You cross it out. You don't cross it out. That's your paper. Done.
I think the bigger concern is, do you think this brings in a precedent that could be dangerous down the road?
Oh, very much so, because I think down the road, I think I do believe right now, get on the record that was not the governor's intent. I do believe that.
Yeah, I don't
think it was a simple mistake. It happens. If we need to fix it, let's just fix it. But yeah, down the road, it could be like you do something, you very quickly maybe realize that was maybe not the most politically expedient thing to do, whatever. Sure. And now you're like, oh, wait a second, but that was not my intent. Look at this. And so you can start just twisting things when a veto should be a cut and dry yes or no, right?
Yep.
Whether it's for a whole bill or a line item, what you're vetoing is
what's crossed out is vetoed.
Exactly.
Yep.
And there's no intent on, well, maybe I would have, should have, could have.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, interesting perspective. I agree with you on it.
On the committee's note, what are some of the committees you're on?
Yeah, there we go.
I'm on 3 committees. I'm in the interim judiciary, education, and study for children are kind of taken care of.
Sweet. So being on the judiciary committee, you have to do a little bit of playing lawyer with that at least.
You do, and I was on the judiciary committee during
session.
During session, that was my first pick. I've always really enjoyed the law and how it affects us. We're an extremely judicious society.
I interrupt you, but that's unique because, and I'm going to get in trouble for this comment, but it feels like a lot of the legislature doesn't enjoy the law. They enjoy making the law, but you know you get term limits, and they're trying to get around it. They're trying to say that it's not what it means, that and all this. So it's kind of a unique.
It is, unicorn. And you can see my votes. My record let speak for itself. Even though I've only been in. The first time you interviewed me when I was still running, I was like I had no record. Right, now I got a record, and you can see how I voted on these issues. Could that amendment been written clearly better? Mm-hmm. Like if I could rewrite the amendment that passed, I would have just taken the amendment right out of the Constitution of the United States that put term limits on the president and vice president, right?
And just basically
transpose it, because it accounted for things like, okay, how much of a term is going to be considered a whole term, right? And they decided, okay, more than 50%.
Yep.
Now, if we decided that one day in office counts as a term, well, then, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying we should have done 50% or whatnot, but the key things to think through, I think, were when is a term considered a full term? And more importantly, when does this take effect?
Yep.
A lot of people argue, well, if it doesn't say when it takes effect when, as soon as it goes into it's signed in, right?
Sure,
Which, okay, I agree. Boom, put it in. But now it's like, well, how about the people that are currently in? Goes back to is that a term or is that not a term?
Like, for the people that are in the middle of their term at that point.
And so it, I think, unfortunately, did leave
a little gray area.
A little gray area where I think it could have been clearer. And then I'm not saying it wouldn't have been an issue, but there would have been at least less issue about, okay, this is it. So,
but we're talking, like, how many people did this affect that were in their first term that would only be able to serve 6 years total? Like, you're going to talk about very few people. Most of the people that are saying that this is a huge problem
have already
been there for
a minute,
at least
4 years, 10 years, 20 years.
So the amount of people that will not at least get a solid 8, right, at least per chamber, right, are few and far between. Right. And no, I'll give you that, definitely. But legality, you got to get down to the nitty gritty. So I think it was it was poorly written. And left gray area, and so it's tough. But they're there, and I think there's pros and cons to them, and I think it's just a matter of time to decide if the pros outweigh the cons for North Dakota. And like I said, I've had an opportunity to talk to legislators from a lot of states during this interim, and like you said, seeing how different our states are. That in some states it works well, in other states not so much, and it just comes down to. Our state is unique. Our state is awesome, and we're just going to have to see what works. And if it really turns out that it's not working, I have no doubt that, not that it's not working, that the cons outweigh the pros.
Yeah.
People in North Dakota are gonna either change it back or amend it, right? And it's a work in progress. So I don't know. There's a lot of people worried about it.
I don't know.
Do you think
I'm not too worried about it.
Do you think what's on the ballot for next fall is a good proposal?
I mean,
for the listeners, what's on the ballot?
Yeah, for the expanded term limits for next year.
So basically, you can serve it on either side, right?
Yeah,
you can serve 16 years total. It doesn't matter which side.
It can be both, either. Yeah.
I think
in a vacuum, say that we didn't have the first one and this was the initial one.
And this was the initial. Yeah, sure. There's a lot of ways to, I think, skin the cat on term limits. But if I were to say, well, where do you put term limits? Where's my middle ground? Where does you say the senator feel that if I were king for a day, said, well, term limits, no term limits. There's a big part of me that believes term limits occur at the ballot box.
Sure.
I mean, what if whether it's me or anybody, you have a legislator that people really, really like. People feel like that legislator supports them. Their views are where they want everything, and they want to keep electing the person. Well, now all of a sudden, I as a voter can no longer vote for that legislator when that person's doing a great job.
Yep.
So that's a little bit of a disservice, but pros and cons. On the other side, what's the issue we're really dealing with? Incumbency, man. Incumbency. Has a extremely disparate advantage. So maybe cooling off periods is the point. Because that's the other thing. I want to, for example, I'll use my running mate, because she's much younger than most, although we do have some really young people in the legislature. But Representative Belinsky is a good example of she's young. By the time, quote me quite on her age, but here very soon.
Don't get us all in trouble and say
I
her
know,
age.
right? Exactly, right. Although I know, but I'll keep it my secret.
Exactly.
She could very quickly run out her 8 years, and say by the time you hit her early 30s, she served.
Yeah.
And who's to say that with the experience she's gained in the legislature and the life experience she will gain over the next 30 years, one day when she's in her 50s or 60s, she decides to run again because there's something very valuable she could bring. Now she's not allowed to because she's turned out.
Yeah.
So I think that term limits are good because let the next person come in. But if there's a cooling off period, whether it be 1 term, 2 terms, whatever, you can come back in, because now if multiple people want to get back in the deal, there's a more even playing field, because now they've all had that incumbency, and so now, it's more even. So it's a tough question.
Term limits is the most conservative law ever, because conservatives like less government until they want more, and that's what term limits is.
Yes,
term limits is less government until I wanted just a little bit more. So that way I felt like it was more fair for less government. I have no idea why. But it's an incredible, like you said.
It's a little bit of a...
term limits is supposed to be, or could be determined at the ballot boxes. That's where people get voted out. But no, let's go ahead and go make government a little more restrictive here. So that way we can have more free government.
It does. And like I said, we talked a little bit about the cons, but the pros are obviously everything you said, Jonathan, and even a big part of it too is who you. I guess you've gotten to know the person who's been in the legislature for 10, 15, 20 years. They have a lot more of effect on even how bills get moved around, and more people listen to them, and so
some of that influence and institutional knowledge.
Right? So now, is it fair that the representative from District X or a senator from District Y has more influence than everyone else, even though they're supposed to be one and one's equals? When everyone's in this case on or about their second term or third and fourth, if you count the other house, you start to balance it out. So yeah, you're right. It limits government. How about lobbying? Right.
Yeah, that's a whole different.
Exactly. I think we have going back to not having a staff. I think it puts lobbyists in this state in a completely different light than any other state. I think a very positive one, because you rely on them for so much. So that means that
they have to deal directly with you.
With you, exactly. That's the thing. Not having to deal with the staff. So we'll get into that, but I think it's very positive things. But at the end of the day, they get to know you, get to know somebody, and now you're like, okay, I'll go to this guy, and he's done this for me before. Maybe he'll do that. I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily illegal, or, being done, but you just get to know.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to keep moving your agenda forward, and every 8 years you've got to resell it, that's ensuring that the agenda hasn't become stale and we're just doing a thing because we've been doing it.
Right.
And that's an amazing positive thing for term limits too.
And on the flip side of that, if you have a lobbyist that starts putting out bad information and he has to deal with you guys directly, it's all of a sudden going to become a lot harder in that regard.
Most definitely. And that's exactly.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Well, there's a big topic we wanted to talk about with you. And it's something that's affecting every city in North Dakota.
Yes, every city.
Yeah, the legislature decided to go and have this effect on every city,
every county,
every school board, every park district.
Yes,
you guys really, really went all out this year, and you guys decided to put out a 3% cap. So, obviously, to give context, a lot of our viewers
I've become you guys. I'm now.
You're one of those.
One of those, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. Yes. You voted for this, didn't you?
Say again?
You voted for this, didn't you?
I did.
You did?
I did.
That's what makes this conversation so much better. It's going to be a friendly conversation. It's probably going to be a little bit heated, but know that we'll all stay friends when we're done.
Oh, of course.
So
this is what it's about.
This is very important.
Yeah. So basically, there was tax reform that was felt. It was needed. It was really because of the Measure 4 that went on the property tax or went on the ballots in last November. And Measure 4 was going to eliminate property tax the way it is now. that failed, but the governor decided, hey, I still want this to happen. And he said that in part of his address. And then several of the legislators went and put bills out. One of them got deemed as the governor's bill, for better or for worse, which was the one that Kelly Armstrong fully supported. That has put a 3% cap and got a $1,600 tax credit back to primary residence owners. What it is supposedly part of the plan, and maybe it won't happen, but could happen, is over the next 10 years, that $1,600 credit could increase. It's not a guarantee. It's not written into law. It's not codified or anything like that.
But the plan is.
Yeah, that it would increase over the next 10 years and eliminate property taxes completely for primary residence owners. All right. That's basically where we're at, right? So now that's what happened, end of legislative session. Now we're in this budget process. So the Ward County, that's where we're at, is putting together a budget. City of Minot's putting together a budget, and these are two that we followed relatively closely. And they've gone two different directions. City of Minot has, in the past 3 years, had very large budgets. Last year, they made substantial cuts, but the law provisioned that you could go back in the last 3 years, choose your highest year that you had the highest amount of tax, the highest mill levy, and you could increase 3% off of that. So City of Minot's fine.
And for City of Minot, that if they get it all, it would look closer to almost a 13% increase.
Yeah, it'd be but
from last year, because they'd go for the highest we've had at 3%. So then it'd be came down, it'd be a 13% jump.
Yeah. So 13% jump, but that, in my opinion, is simply because we had people that were intent, whatever political word you want to use, that's fine. I'm going to use the word intent on decreasing the city budget. Last year, if that didn't happen, then they would also be, they have money, they have reserves, they would have been fine, but they would have been in a precarious spot as well. And that's good. That's good because that was kind of the point of it, right? But contrasting it, we have the Ward County budget that they've been very tight. Their budget has gone like up and down by dollars, barely, the last 5, 6, 7 years. You look at it, there'll be an increase and then there'll be a drop.
And they have a minimal reserve set.
They've kept their reserves minimum. So they're at the point where first year they're like, we got to cut substantial services. We're looking at cutting for a while. They may have gone away from it, but they were looking at cutting a $1 million a year service, annual service, which was something that was not other counties. It was kind of a regional service.
That juvenile detention service.
Yeah. Yep. So they've been in a difficult spot. So before you're not an expert on the Ward County budget and you're not expert on the city budget, but I'm sure you've got a lot of feedback.
Yes.
So wanted to just establish a space to work off of in our conversation. Feedback that you've gotten so far on the 3% cap, not just from citizens, but also because I'm sure there's been some councilmen, I'm sure there's been commissioners, I'm sure there's been people like that have reached out and told you how they feel about it. What's some of the feedback you've heard so far?
Well, some of the feedback, and I also want to get back, talk to people a little bit about we talked about growing that 1,600. Just a quick bit on that about why not. I mean, just real quick.
That'd be good.
The reason, like you said, it's not established in law is because if we said that next biennium it goes up to 2,000, then you are effectively telling the next legislature that they have to put something in to spend. And so a prior legislature cannot tell the next legislature this is what they're going to have to do. So to say this will increase, by $200 every biennium, X% every biennium, anything that you like that, just at least in North Dakota, we're not allowed to do because every legislature is unique and they deal with that. So for some people have asked, hey, how come it's not set in stone that it will go up, yearly, kind of from here on out, perpetuity until we change it? That's why.
Okay.
So anyways, because that question has been asked. Because you're forcing the next legislature to now have to spend on something.
So you guys can't sign contracts longer than a year or 2 years?
No.
You can't sign a contract longer than 2 years?
You can, and in some cases they've been signed, but they've been more like, for example, like giving oil company and tell them, hey, we're not going to tax you for the next 10 years on this because that's, now you're saying this revenue that I'm not going to take from you, as opposed to saying this is money that is going to be expended by the legislature.
The easiest example would be a lease of some type. You can't sign a 3-year lease.
That we'll look up. I have to get back to you. But for some things, you just can't, force the next legislature to kind of do that. But that's a really good question. I should dig into. But that's been the big deal. But going back to your original question, most, if you will, county commissioners, city council aldermen, are not a fan of the 3%. Because they feel that they need to have the ability and the agility to be able to set budgets as necessary to be able to run a county, run a city, and be good stewards of the money. And they fear this is why people elected them. And so to be told you're limited, no one likes that. And a little part of it could be, could be just like ego. You hit me here. Another part of it could be like, no, you're seriously keeping me from doing my job as I was elected to take care of my constituents, right? Because I have constituents, I want to take care of them, but now you're limited to this. I cannot effectively take care of them.
They're going to argue that by cutting this service is a disservice to those constituents.
Exactly. And what if the constituents say, I'm happy to pay more taxes because I want this service, but that's going to get me up to 3.2% on the budget, not just 3%. Right now, all of a sudden, we've at the legislature also told local level constituents, here's how much you're allowed to even increase your own government, even if you are willing to say, pay the taxes. If there was a vote and it's like, hey, we want to raise sales tax by X amount, that's going to raise the city budget by, more than 3%. And granted, we talked about the 13, but just speaking generically, right? You've hampered that. So from the citizens, some of them are happy because they're like, they're spending too much. There's a reason we need to cap this. Others are seeing that it just may not be almost like, if you will, a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, and how much are you hampering a city from being able to continue to grow? My 2 cents, and the reason I voted for it was because there's a big part of it of saying, hey, we needed some sort of, let's just say, I think we need property tax reform. I
agreed.
Big picture. There's only so many bills when you go through them they're going to pass. So at the end of the day, the bill that was going to pass that had the 3% and said this is the bill that's going to give reform, a little bit of reform. I don't say it was reform. It was more of a kickback because I still think we need reform. But extra $1,600, which is very important. I'm glad we got it. I think property tax is overpriced. It's going to help a lot of people. Was necessary. So I had 2 choices. I always joke with my little buttons I have right in front of me. There's a red button and a green button, right? There's no gray, maybe. There's no, hey, hold on, I'm in the bathroom. Maybe let's skip no, there's no abstaining. In our life, that's another beautiful thing.
Vote.
Unless
you're absent.
If
you're there.
And that's a bad day.
Or conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, exactly. But now you take a break and the whole body actually votes right then and there on whether they believe it's a conflict of interest.
Sure.
Oh, I see.
So it's like, stop. Hey, I have a conflict of interest. Here's my conflict of interest.
But constituents aren't going to be happy.
Right? Exactly. And then it's a then we do a voice vote, right? And if a voice vote, then we'll stop and take an actual recorded roll call vote to get the number,
right,
and do that. So you have to vote, right? So yes or no. On one hand, this is the bill is going to pass. This is the bill is going to give constituents a little bit of a respite in the crazy property tax hikes that I believe have gotten out of control. On the other hand, it's going to come with this 3%. A lot of it's not black and white, right? Where's that great button? Once again, I don't have. So, you know what? If for the time being there's a 3%, let's put the 3% on and see what happens. It's not going to break counties. It's not going to break cities for the next biennium. If in a biennium we see and look, maybe services have to go away, etc. But people are getting their $1,600 because at the point where, as the bill was being made, I guess I could have definitely offered an amendment to say take out the 3%, right? And see if that would have gone through. So that's something on me that I could have said, hey, let's not do this. But
we won't put that on you.
right,
Yeah, there's a lot of-
I mean, I could have. There's individuals that can in the
yeah,
Senate.
right, yeah.
You can offer floor amendments,
Right,
right?
yeah.
So could have maybe, and then maybe it wouldn't have passed. I could have been like,
Yeah.
well,
I tried.
I
Yeah.
tried, right?
Yeah.
I can't say I did that because I didn't. On the other hand, though,
Yeah.
there's another hand where I do believe, like we were talking about right here before we went on air, that the saying, you take the king's coin, you do the king's bidding. I am still internally frustrated with the fact that property tax is a local tax that is levied by cities and counties, and here now the state is getting involved in it. I believe that the state getting involved in long term paying off property taxes is a bad move. Now, the state forcing actual reform, like we're going to change
Yeah.
the way we're doing this structurally.
Yeah.
That's a different ballgame.
That's, I think we can do this anywhere
Yeah.
from getting rid of it to how we're going to manage it, etc. But I see the $1,600 as a short term fix, help people get to the point where they can't afford it anymore. But in the meantime, we also I think there's a fairness to say, I'm paying this. You can't just turn around and say raise your budget to then bring the tax from somewhere else, because the whole point was to lower it. So the constituents wanted this. Constituents say you want the extra money. Okay, here it is. But it needs to be a help. You can't turn around, lower it here, and raise it here because it would have been useless.
Sure.
That's such a good point. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and talk about that.
I'm ready.
Boy, do we have some stuff to talk about.
Enjoy Minot's finest authentic Mexican cuisine with a view at Mi Mexico. The rooftop patio is open and ready for you to enjoy a margarita or other cool refreshment along with genuine mouth-watering Mexican entrees. Mi Mexico, South Broadway.
In the demanding world of oil and gas, precision, safety, and efficiency are non-negotiable. Unmanned operator drone services revolutionizes how you monitor, inspect, and manage your operations. With cutting-edge technology and expert operators, we deliver real-time data, detailed reports, and actionable insights for our valuable clients. Why risk the safety of your team or waste precious time? Our drones access even the most challenging areas with ease, reducing downtime and enhancing safety across your sites. We take the guesswork out of your projects by offering LiDAR, mapping, and inspection services so that your projects stay safe, on budget, and on time. Unmanned operator drone services, where technology meets safety, precision, and efficiency. Contact us today to elevate your operations. Yes, pun intended.
All right.
Hey, we're back.
We're back. We're in the middle of a intense property well, it hasn't gotten intense yet.
Intense.
We're trying to
We're
get
trying
it there. We're trying to get it there. Basically, you gave some great reasoning about 3% cap and all this. I feel like we're in this awkward stage, though. Well, first off, you said it's not going to crush counties and cities, and it's not going to crush them. There aren't going to be any.
And
Most likely, there won't be any cities or counties that go bankrupt. There's some that are under 3%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was Mandan got to
And I think that shows the fact that there's some people that had some fat in their budget.
Yeah.
Because
or places like Williston that have been in debt and overspending spending
Right.
in the red the last 2 years. I mean, you can attribute some of that to what they got saddled with the oil boom and everything.
And I said
There's
it over
positives.
the next 2 years,
Yeah,
right?
understand.
Because we can,
Yeah.
when
You
we go
can
back to
change
the
it.
legislature, I'd like to think there's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot more discussion on property tax next
I
in
hope so.
2027.
For sure.
Yeah.
The problem, though, well, going back to Mandan, when you look at first thing that we hear about in Minot's discussions around budgets is, now remember, 80% of our budget is people. That's basically right around that percentage, give or take a couple percentage points, is the number that's used. Around 80% is people in a budget. So for Mandan to decrease their budget, either something got cut, they had a lot of fat, something or they don't follow the 80%. But we're not an expert on Mandan's budget. So going to something that we're more familiar with, this 3% cap, Ward County, they're in trouble. They're going to be fine. They're going to have a budget. They don't have reserves, though.
They
don't-
might be okay this year.
Yeah.
But next year it's going to be.
They have to
Yeah.
cut something in a county that's been fiscally conservative, though. And that's where I don't think there was any foresight. I know that there was a lot of discussion, and I'm not criticizing the smarts of people that are smarter than me that have been discussing this for way longer than I was discussing it. But I don't think there was foresight on how it would affect places that were already fiscally conservative. because there's not as much fat to cut. You're getting into like scraping off little parts off several things just so you can make by, which is not a great deal. And the problem with it is then the next year, you have to do it again. Basically what the plan is right now is it says, we're going to go and have a 3% cap, which means every 3 years you have to reset your budget. So because like we're seeing it with the city of Minot. Last year they did these budget cuts, but they're able to go back in the last 3 years, find their highest one. So if they have a high one, if they went again high this year, then they could go and cut their budget the next years and then go high again and keep that. Every 3 years, you have to reset your budget. If you cut something now, great. That helps you for the next 3 years. And then you have to cut something else if you're on a fiscally budget. Like that's how it works now. That's the new game. My deal is this. I've said a lot. You probably want to comment. My deal is this. Why you, the legislator, you guys, went and did a $1,600 tax credit, primary tax credit, but it's a 3% cap. And over the next 10 years, we're going to work on getting rid of the property tax. Why not go and do a cascading cap too? Say 8% cap, $1,600 tax credit, 8% cap. Next year, it's 7% cap, 16, and cascade it down. Something.
That's something that could have been done. You know what? It's like, coulda, shoulda, would have. But the reality is that for what people were, the bills that were out there, there were a few, and ultimately the one that gained enough traction to be able to have enough people, to pass,
get support
was a
behind it.
16% cap. And there was a lot of back and forth about whether or not, I guess, like it or not, discussion was skin the game of whether or not cities have to have skin in the game. And I do believe they do. Now, whether 3% was the right number, like I said, I think that is something that the next legislature, we're going to be able to amend, fix, remove, etc.
Do you think it'll be fixed, though? Do you genuinely think that there'll be consensus on a better path forward?
I'd like to think there is. I can't tell you if there is or isn't.
Yeah,
I haven't talked, but I really think that there needs to be, because you're right. There are. Now,
I don't think taxing authorities can take 4 years of this.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you can take 4. But here's the other thing that I look at too is it depends on what kind of growth you're looking at. Because if you're looking purely at inflationary growth, my question is, and maybe here's where I'm kind of missing the point, is if the city, let's make the assumption that the city, the county has not grown, same size, same amount of people, everything. If inflation went up, we'll say 3%, and so did your budget. That's even something I ran on. Like, why should budgets have to increase by more than inflation, assuming everything else is held constant? Well, then if Ward County is working fine with the last budget and inflation goes up 3%, then it goes up 3%. And that's absolutely fine. I don't think it's going to hurt anybody. They're going to be just fine. Where I think we missed the boat, though, is as populations grow, as counties grow, because there's a reason why a larger city costs more to run than a smaller city. So it should probably have been, at the very least, a combination of the actual physical growth of the municipality combined with then a 3% increase, because a pencil that cost you $1 last year is going to cost you $1.03 this year. And that's a reality. But if towns are growing, budgets need to grow with it, and it is going to be more than a 3% increase. And I think it should have been a combination of both.
I'll tell you this, because going back to the first point, and I hear your last point, which is it should have been a combination of both. But going back to the first point, why would it need to be more than 3%? I mean, you have a average annual raise is 3 to 5%. So right there, off of a budget that is 80% people, you're pushing the 3% limit just by annual wage raises.
Yep.
That's it right there. And then you have insurance right now and benefit plans that are just outrageous because of a market reset that's going on. That it's incredible what's going on with that. So numbers are coming.
That's a national thing too. That we've got.
Yeah. So numbers are all messed up there, and so that's coming back to these counties. And so just right there, their budget is hamstrung. And then they have their already plans that they were doing, whether that included any elements of growth or whatever. So right there, like your 3% is gone, and that's what Ward County found.
And I'm with you there. Part of it is inflationary costs. The other part of it, though, is growth of the city. And when I say growth of the city, it can be physical growth. It can be growth of people. Maybe we need more roads. Maybe, and like you said, as the population, even if you don't hire anybody, the population of any company, if you continue to give them raises, now it's costing you more to have the exact same set
staff
of people,
there,
the staff, right?
Yep.
And that grows even though nothing else is happening. And so you'd like to give them a raise, not just a cost of living raise so they're
but something
because you won't keep them.
but then something above because they get
you want to stay
smarter.
competitive.
You do not want a cost of living adjustment. You want a merit based.
Well, you want both. I'd say at least, so I separate into two. There's cost of living and then maybe another 2% merit.
Right. Yeah.
For those
Which
of whom that,
what it would
And
end
when
up
it's
being.
80% of your budget, 80% of 2%, you need another 1.6 right there. So now we're talking at least a 4.6.
So, yep, exactly. And that's something that the state doesn't have to deal with. Not just the cap, which we'll talk about, but the fact that your budget is made up of 80% people. You know how much it costs the state for a citizen to live in North Dakota?
No, the cost per
$25,000.
of what, of services
$20 billion broken down is like 20, like every budget costs $25,000.
Oh, so you take the 20.3 billion divided by our
800-ish
Yeah.
thousand.
Right.
thousand. Okay,
Yeah.
so I see.
Isn't that high? It feels high.
20?
$25,000 per person to live in. That's how much the budgetary cost is.
Broken up
It's not
over.
the actual cost for the state. It's far less.
No, the
But-
state. Well, another thing that
and that's not including city and counties and stuff like that are actually covering citizens.
Another thing that I'm looking at, it kind of ties it together. Your first question, well, what is it you do in the interim? Something I'm trying to do is exactly what you said, and I think it's higher than that because I'm been right before session ended working with the tax department to try to figure out, is there any way that I can get the number that is the amount of money that the state of North Dakota brings in revenue? When I say the state, I don't mean
The county or the
state. I mean the sum of every amount that we tax. Like
oh, so you mean like the total from
aggregate.
part, county,
part,
district,
exactly
school,
across
state,
across everything.
Sure.
Because now you're like, okay, it doesn't cost $20.3 billion to run North Dakota. I don't know, maybe it's $30.3 billion, right?
Whatever that
We
number
really need
is.
metric.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so it's tough to get. So something kind of working on. Don't know if I'm going to be successful or not. But now you can say, okay, exactly what you're saying. So I was thinking, what is it really costing? And where are we sitting? Where's that money going? Does it really cost? Because then you're right, it costs more than $25,000 per person
At that point, yeah.
per person. So going back to the whole deal, the taxes is that. Yeah, you capped the 3%, but the reason I thought of this is because at the end of the day, it costs X amount of money to run a state, whether it's in things like roads infrastructure, or maybe we'll get, if we have time when we get into further things talking about different grants, right?
Sure, yeah.
I'm sure it's possibly on your agenda to discuss things that we're doing. And so, at what point do you say, well, enough is enough, and how much are we spending, per capita, or and it's not the spending per capita. Maybe it comes down to another perspective of per capita. Not that it's costing $25,000 per person. I mean, to run the state, right? I mean, again, it's how much is each person putting in? Does that mean that in the aggregate, not everyone's putting in 25, but
exactly.
am I putting in $25,000? What am I getting in return?
Yeah.
Right. What services? What
Exactly.
roads? So my whole big picture then is, let's take this to the nth degree. I feel to a certain extent that the state of North Dakota usurped the cost of running a city by adding another $1,600 to the to the tax,
Sure,
right?
for that credit.
But now you can't increase it for that credit. We're not going to pay for this. Well, if you think of it academically and take this to the nth degree, what if we said we're going to ban any taxation except the state? Right? Academically, think about that.
That would sound like a state idea.
Right? I mean, I don't think it's a very good idea.
Yeah, just
on the
in-
record.
just in
But
theory.
just in theory.
Yeah.
And because we came down to say, hey, we decided it's cost $30 billion.
Yep.
Well, now you're like, okay, Well, then if you're upset that the city's hiking it up and, and now, the city of Mandan just raised my taxes and now the city of Minot did too, and this, that, the other, and everyone's looking towards the legislature to fix it, it's like, fine. No one's allowed to levy taxes except the state legislature. How much do we need? It costs, make it up $35 billion to run the state. We're going to find ways to collect $35 billion worth of taxes, but all your money is going to go straight to the state. None of it goes to the city. And now we just start doling it out.
And the state decides how it's distributed
right?
at that
see
point.
What I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one end. The other end is just to completely let cities do whatever they want and go crazy. And now you're going to have, these disparities across the state where some cities and counties are extremely fiscally conservative. Other ones are going crazy and your taxes are out of control. Mm-hmm. And so you just let that happen. The question is it the state's responsibility to find a way to find the middle ground between those the two issues? Mm-hmm. One, how much gets taxed at the local level versus the state level, and how much should the state be involved in trying to equalize it so the cities are all the same? And I think that maybe the very beginning of that is, sure, you need a little help. We have money, here you go. But then that's going back full circle. These $1,600 per primary residence.
Yep.
Where's that money coming from? From taxes that who paid, that you and I paid.
Exactly.
So it's just coming back for a circle.
Yep.
You're still paying for this.
In one way or another.
In one way or another. Mm-hmm. So all you essentially did was say, well, if it's going to come from this revenue stream, we're going to have to cut back on this revenue stream because we want to keep taxes the same. And to a certain extent, that was the goal, saying, if I'm going to pay the $1,600 off of a state revenue stream, that needs to be stopped from this other revenue stream. If not, we're going to be double taxing. Mm-hmm, and so to a certain extent, that was the genesis of 3%. Maybe not the most effective way of doing it, but you cannot say, oh, I'll pay the extra $1,600 and now can you have two revenue streams because, now everything does go up.
Sure.
I think that needs to be done. If we're going to start doing that, something needs to be cut. But there might not have been enough time in the legislature to really dig into that and say, okay, how are we going to do it effectively? But now that it's been done, I think it's something that
you have a baseline for better or for worse.
Discussing,
for worse.
And in this case, and it's something that does need to be discussed next legislature and figure out how. And even as simple as deciding, hey, maybe it needs to be, or we just came up with the 4.8. You're giving you're giving both. If 80% of the cost of counties and cities
is their employees,
then you got to account for both a cost of living increase and a merit increase
and health insurance.
And the increasing cost of health insurance. Now that you got all that, that is the cost of doing things right without even
worrying about the services or anything.
else. But and take that, do that. At least now you're getting somewhere where I think it is more sustainable. But at the very least, one positive thing that may come out of 3%, and I think Jonathan agreed, is that maybe some cities and counties that were a little fat somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe it's forced them to cut the fat a little
For
bit.
sure.
So maybe this kind of forced them to go on a diet. Some people like diets, some don't.
Yeah.
But now that we're done with the diet, now we need to figure out how to now start eating healthy again.
I just don't enjoy going on other people's diets for their.
And that's exactly what happened.
And that's what's
right?
going with Ward County.
No, that's it. You know what I mean? I mean, you could, or maybe I'll put it on me. Maybe I could be massively overweight, and you're not. But now we're both forced to go on the same diet.
Yeah,
I got 100 pounds to lose. You only have, say, 10.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, I can't lose 100 pounds. I lose 100 pounds, I'm going to die, right? That's kind of what we're asking people to do.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's going to be okay. It's going to work out, and we're gonna find that fine line, because I think it goes back to what I said before. You got to cut one revenue stream or the other, and find that balance between how much is taxed at the local level for local control, how much is taxed at the state level, and just remember that the source of this was through Measure 4, people of North Dakota as a whole, because it didn't fail by much, did it?
No, but
we're
60-40, something like that.
Asking the state to help curb the cost of it. And so how do you curb the cost of it? You got to cut some other revenue stream. You can't just throw money and be like, oh, here it is.
So do you think that using the legacy fund as the buy down source for that $1,600 is a good way to use the legacy fund?
No, not at all. In my opinion, no, because the legacy fund was put in place to to be able to have the same. Let me go back. Roughly a third of our budget comes from oil, right? Or $20.3 billion, right? Third general fund, a third, special assessments, federal money.
That's what's crazy about this.
A third from the oil.
$20 billion budget, which is higher than Montana or South Dakota.
20.3.
Yeah.
So,
20 billion, yeah.
Yeah.
I said not million.
Yeah.
No, billion with a big
With
B,
the B.
right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
capital
B as in
B.
boy, right?
Yeah.
So, I lost my train of thought there.
Sorry.
So you got the $6 billion that comes in from there.
Yep.
So to a certain extent, we've been fat on the budget. We only, in fact, the budget did go up. This past year about.
Don't even tell me that's under 3%. I know it was, but don't even get into
No,
that.
I'm not saying 3%. 2 3/4 for the general fund, and it went up about just over 3 for the total budget. No, I'm not trying to compare the 3%, but it did go up. But the beautiful thing about it is it did go up, but taxes did not go up at all, right? So we really heavily rely on that roughly, $6 billion-ish, $7 billion-ish from oil. So what is going to per biennium?
Yep.
So what is going to happen if I don't think oil goes away, but at some point, some wells are starting to run dry. Maybe find other ones. Maybe, I'm not going to sit there and say, okay, oil's disappearing. The reality is that it goes deeper and deeper, and so it gets more expensive to pull out. Right?
Well, maybe there's a point it's no longer worth extracting it.
Exactly, and so now we're going to lose that revenue. The goal is that through the whole time that we were extracting oil, we saved up in the legacy fund so that when it is gone, we can then continue to get money from said legacy fund in the form of interest in perpetuity, so our grandchildren and great-grandchildren continue to have the ability to supplement their budget from the oil that was pulled out 2 generations ago.
Yep.
So if we want to keep our budget the same size, and we start seeing that the portion that oil provides starts to go down, and we want to keep that same lifestyle, now the goal would be to start supplementing it through the legacy fund because we're making up for that, right? Keep hitting the mic.
You're good.
Sorry.
But so to me, that is what it was set up for.
Yep.
That's what it was meant for. But to start kind of pulling out of it to do something else, did we pull out of the legacy fund because we're seeing a decrease in oil revenues? Yeah, we're seeing a small decrease in oil revenues, but we didn't pull out of the legacy fund to make up for that. No, we pulled out of the legacy fund to make up, to give people a break on the property taxes, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It needs to be done. But I don't think that was the best use of the legacy fund, nor what it was meant to do. And so, in the long run, that's so it comes down to how much money does it cost to run the state, and that those tax revenue streams have to come from somewhere. And so, if it truly is costing a city, a municipality, X amount of money to run, well, they're going to have to get that money from somewhere. And if you can agree or disagree, because guess what? Everybody wants the government to get cut, less government, less programs, until it's your program that you use, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? When it's your program, that's how we want it. So we really have to agree on saying what programs at the state level, the county level, the city level, you want to get cut. Because at the end of the day, if we were to say, let's get rid of property tax, it's illegal to have property tax in North Dakota. Oh, okay, well, that's revenue lost. So unless you're willing to cut tons of programs, cut personnel, cut whatever, that revenue stream has to come from somewhere else. So are we going to, what tax? Are we going to make up a new tax? Are we going to increase current taxes? We're super low on income tax. Is the income tax what's going to go up?
Are you going to start special assessing everything in municipalities?
It could be, right? Yeah. It kind of goes property tax, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the issue is more along the lines of we need to just agree to say, all the programs that the government currently run are good programs and we like them and we're going to leave them and that's that. Or say there's programs that need to go or need to be decreased, and I'd say not because I don't like them politically or I disagree with the way I think money should be spent, but if we're going to get to programs, I think where we're not doing a really good job of is looking at programs and seeing how effective they truly are being. And if they are truly being ineffective, then those are programs you either cut or revamp to fix. because now you're probably paying more money than you should to get a service to the people. Because at the end of the day, you got to get certain service to the people. And if you could do it for $2, but this program is costing you $5, maybe that program needs to go into revamp it so it only costs us $2.
Yeah.
So I think that's really where the crux of the issue comes down to. My personal frustration with property taxes, I feel that it just seems very un-American to me to being taxed for something I own.
Sure.
You own your house, well, you have to pay property tax. Well, okay, yeah, you do, because the roads aren't free, curb and gutter isn't free, police officers aren't free, fire isn't free, right? So how are you going to pay those? I would almost feel better, and it's just a feeling. I mean, you can't legislate feelings, I suppose, but if it was like, this is the service tax you pay to be able to say, I have police, I have curb and gutter, I have fire, I have every other service, you get into parks and schools, right? All that. And that's a fee that maybe
that's
somehow...
how sales tax, that's what they're wanting to do with sales tax. They're wanting to begin to decrease it and then say every time you spend $1, as part of that money is going towards your fire department.
Because that's the cost of existing inside versus saying, well, you own property, because you already, well, what if you rent? Well, technically you're paying it because part of the rent is going towards that. But
depends. But
a lot of people is quite un-American saying, well, because you have to pay, if not, we take your property away. People are going to say, well, it takes years and years to take it away and blah, blah, blah. But still, that's
the principle of the fact that it can be taken away.
But let's not forget that if you want these government services, whether it's be as simple and as obvious as we should have them in an orderly society, police, fire, education, all that, roads, you're going to have to pay your taxes. So at the end of the day, call it what you call it. A rose is a rose, but any other name, you're going to have to pull out your wallet and you're going to have to put money in the common fund if you want common services.
Just make sure there's no tolls in North Dakota.
That's another way to raise taxes, right?
How much of the total budget is for water control projects, though? My understanding is Fed money. I'm not sure what the total is on that. I did do a quick comparison, and these numbers may not be perfect. Because South Dakota does annual budgets, if you turn that into a biennium budget, they're at $14.6 billion over 2 years. If you just use their 2025 number, and that would be $6.2 billion of that coming from federal. If you just took their 2025 budget, doubled it for 2 years, doubled all the numbers, right? And for North Dakota, we're of course at the $20.3 billion, and I believe our federal funds is about $6.3 billion. So we get around, if these numbers are accurate, we get around the same amount of federal money as South Dakota does. With
one cost that we have that I would say is higher than South Dakota, because now you compare it, right? I mean, are we comparing apples to apples, apples to oranges, right? We've been spending over the last maybe decade and a half, maybe 2 decades, a considerable amount of money on water projects, whether it is flood protection or whether it's to bring water, to different areas.
NAS has been a big thing.
And so how much of that, it's another thing I can sit down and do, how much of that is money that is spent in North Dakota that is not spent in South Dakota as projects? And, how much of that you could arguably say is that delta that, because you said 16, so we're talking about you said 16 billion.
Their biennium. Their biennium is right around 15 billion. So
15.
we're
so
five
and a half, right?
Above them.
So we have $5.5 billion delta. So what is that $5.5 billion buying us in North Dakota that South Dakota is not spending on?
See,
right? What is it? And is it legit? Or are we just spending more because we can, and because we have the oil?
Well, it is because we can, and this is why. Okay, I'll take the hot take, right? I'll just take this
throw it out there.
Go ahead.
Okay, because we talk that way at the state budget, but at the local budget, it's like tough. That's what the answer is right now. It's tough. Minot needs to build a police station, and I understand there's a lot of discussion on how that funding should come, whether there's a cap or not. But it's tough. Like, it's just tough. That's what it is. There's no, we need to do this, and our budget's higher than yours because of these situations. It's just, no.
No, and let me throw another con to the 3% too, just to add fuel to your fire. You brought up a good point. The police station. It could be anything. It could be another fire station, police station. There comes points in time in anybody's business, in anybody's home budget, and even city budgets, where you have to make, I'll call them one-time capital expenditures. And so maybe you say my budget this year, and now this is people you want to be honest, my budget this year is going to go up, relatively speaking. It's going to look like it went up 8%. Why? Because I made a capital expenditure, because I built a new city hall, I built a new police station, I built a new fire station. But then the next year it goes back down. And so a across the board 3% cap, I guess the point is that I think these caps, if you're going to take the king's coin, you're going to do king's bidding. So you want me to get involved? And I'll give you another example of why I feel that way. But I think the cap is generic, and so it doesn't really hit on every requirement that is amongst every city that we have, because every city is so unique and different, and their needs are so different. Say 3% initially. Definitely puts skin in the game and allows us to have these conversations. But long term, I think it's going to be extremely ineffective, especially because what you said, because how do you do this? And the other example I bring is, I keep telling, my kid, hey, you're overspending, you probably shouldn't be getting these credit cards, et cetera, et cetera. Well, whatever, Dad, I got this. Okay, you got this. You do you.
Got it till you don't, right?
But then they call me and they're like, hey, Dad, can I borrow $1,000?
Oh.
I'll be like, okay, sure. Are you going to pay me back with interest? Okay, maybe. So sure, I'll do that. But maybe they're like, look, I'm way behind. Can I have $1,000? Sure, but guess what? The second we start kind of going that road, it's going to be like, well, I am going to help you. Sure, you can have $1,000. We'll get you out of this. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sit down and we're going to look at your budget. What are you spending on? So I'm going to start giving you money, but you're going to...
I'm coming in on this at that point. Yeah.
Oh, well, Dad, I really don't want you to tell me how to spend my money. You're right. Then I can spend $1,000 somewhere else.
So South Dakota has a larger population and a lower budget. Montana has a larger population and lower budget. North Dakota has a smaller population and larger budget.
And off that point, with these big projects that we have in the state, like the water and the flood control stuff, when those projects start wrapping up, and I mean, with the flood control, it's going to be a perpetual thing for a long time, but it's like the NAS project is starting to come to a conclusion. Will something like that see a decrease in the state budget at that point?
I would like to say, because that's the question, what things are we spending on that are making that, and I would argue based on that it's really technically more than even a $5.5 billion delta, because if you were to look at it per capita, right? Because the population is less. So if the populations were identical, you say, okay, well, it's $5.5 billion more dollars, right? But it's actually less.
Yeah,
so then per capita,
they have less money going to more people.
Well, what is the delta? And I'm sure a big part of it is water projects, but then we also have to look at a lot of programs, and a lot of programs could be as well as programs that we have. But the other question would be is, I know that there's a lot of grants in North Dakota gives for different kinds of research, et cetera.
There's a whole department.
Montana,
There's a whole department in North Dakota
Agree or disagree?
that the legislature says we have no control over it, and they just spend money. That department just spends money. It's called the Department of Commerce. They just spend money, and the legislature says we don't know what they spend money on. We have no accountability for them, and they just spend money.
Yes, it's
for the most
I
part.
won't get right now, but yes, it's I've been part of the asking, even as a freshman senator. Can I please have a copy of how it's being spent? And I've gotten very, very little. So even, people think, oh, you're a senator, go ask. No, sometimes you're told there's nothing for you to see here. And so trust me, there's more than a few legislators on top of that right now. But that being said, whether it's, different departments that, once again, I haven't looked into it, but does North Dakota do a lot more of that with grants? Than South Dakota and Montana. Because I'm trying to think where.
Right. Well, I know
where's that money going?
A priority that Brigham had, and overall, it's a good thing. Although there's a lot of programs that'd be great that I think would be fantastic that cost money, and so there has to be a decision made at the budget line, even at the state level, because the state level needs to be accountable for their budget as well. But that we spend a lot of money into the recovery area. And there's been a lot of great programs throughout the state. And I know those are expensive programs right there.
Yeah, they've built in a new cabinet position based off of that. Yeah,
right. And so that's something that's happened in the last couple of years, and that's expensive. Like I know I already said that, but that's very expensive.
I think what makes it so expensive per capita is that it's just the fixed cost of doing it is quite high, and so we have a lot of program for recovery, but we're already a small state, and the portion of the population the percentage of the population is going to benefit from those programs, percentage-wise, is small, right?
That's right.
And that's fine. The smaller, the better. That's what we would want. But you need to build in the infrastructure across the board to set that up. And so, if you get this huge, make it up, you need $1 billion programmatic solution to make this happen. And you help one person. Well, that's $1 billion to help one person, right? You help 10, but that's kind of like the
to put it in
that initially the cost is really high, just like anything, and then per person goes up. But that's the thing. We're at the initial setup stages of these programs, so it's almost I call it a capital expense. There's not
for lack of better term,
but setting these things up.
So, I'm not saying that Zach says we all benefit from people recovering. I'm not saying we need to get rid of that. I'm saying that that's something that was added in the last few years.
One area where
that would be
things
an
have
expensive part of the budget.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. As far as budget inflation, I'm not going through stuff that needs to be cut. Just want to be very clear on that.
Same here. We're just talking about why the initial setup of programs.
Right. Yep.
When there are programs that you could, I think, make the argument that benefit not a large portion of the population, although important that they benefit that segment when it's not a large one, does tend to have a high price tag initially, and then a continuing high price tag per capita. Yep. But that is the cost of doing business. I think it's good money spent.
Sure. So there's so much more we could talk about. We could go talk about the Industrial Commission. We could talk about AI. We could talk about anything that you're considering for this session coming up in 2027. But we've already been at it for an hour and 5 minutes. So we've had good conversation, as it seems it always goes when we have you on. So I appreciate you coming on again.
Well, for sure. And going back to that 3%, I think that it is necessary to have that skin in the game. It is necessary to be able to say, hey, if you don't want this, we're going to get this. But a very cut across deal that in some cases
it's maybe a little too generic in some cases.
Too generic, and it's in some cases maybe helping, in other cases not so much. And long term, I think, is unsustainable.
Yeah, for sure.
So broadly, in 2027, would you expect to see more changes for this?
I would. To be honest with you, have I heard about anything just yet? No.
Sure.
But I do expect to see it, because just like Jonathan put it, we're starting to look at the budgets, right, for the city. So in other words, I think that as we start looking at the budgets and as cities start coming out with their budgets, there's going to be that heartache. And then over the next year, second turn of budgets, and now it's starting to hit harder.
That's when it really starts
exactly. And so I really do think it's going to be a conversation that is going to continue to grow, and I think we need to continue having it in these forums. We need to continue having it amongst the legislators in the interim, and we need to figure out where that balance is between how much the state gets involved and how much you just let cities do what they need to do to run cities, because cities know how to run cities, and legislatures know how to run states. And I think when you start mixing them a little bit, there's a little bit of mix, always will be, but we don't need legislatures running cities, and we don't need cities running city councils running states. We need to know our lanes and minimize crossover.
I got one final question, and this may be too broad for a long answer.
So you can.
Do you think, because the state caps the local municipalities, should the state impose a cap on itself?
I think so. I guess as short as I can make it is like I said, I ran on that, right?
Yeah.
But it has to be a cap that makes sense.
Yeah.
No different than the caps that we're talking about in municipality. Yes, we need to have caps, because an idea that I've also been trying to figure out how to work through is we start every budget in the legislature every year by saying, okay, here's the base budget. Oh, how much are we going to increase it by? So base always becomes that new base.
Yeah.
How often can we say, you know what? I want, maybe every 8 years, every 10 years, or wherever it is, whatever budget it is, because we have about 10, 14 budget bills, wherever they are.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, well, if there's 14, maybe two every biennium. You got to start fresh with that budget.
Zero base.
Zero base.
Yeah.
Right. And so that might be a way where you're not necessarily saying I'm putting a 3% cap or not, but it is the whole point is that being more generic is it's not necessarily about caps, but it's about fiscal responsibility and just budgets growing every year. Just because is not fiscally responsible.
Sure.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I get there's inflation. I get there's cost of living. I get there's merit increases.
Every once in a while, though,
But-
you should be able to find something to trim.
Exactly. And, especially is this program working? It's not working. We thought it would work. We thought it was good. Okay, let's scrap it. We need this service, but this program is really expensive for that. Let's revamp the program to continue to provide the service, maybe at a lower cost. So to answer, yes, I think every government entity from park board to the government of the United States needs to be fiscally responsible, and one of those ways could be caps. Another way could be looking at budgets from zero again, resetting budgets. There's a lot of tools I think we could and should be using, but we got to be smart about them.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
For sure. Very good. Very good. Well, thank you for coming on. It's been a good conversation. Thank you to everyone that tuned in, listened, watched, left a comment. We'll have to have you on back again. We always say that, and then we wait too long, and then our conversations get long. We need to do it more frequent or something. So appreciate it, though.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Always
you.
Enjoy it.
Absolutely. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow the Dakota on YouTube. We'll be back this Thursday, 9 a.m.